Ah, they fooled me into watching another Pirates movie. God damn it.
It is said that blood is thicker than water.
It is said that every movie starts with narration these days.
It is said that blood is thicker than water.
A factual statement and also a cliche.
It is what defines us, binds us, curses us.
That might apply to you specifically, Barnabas, but for everyone else, you're pretty much 0 for 3.
Remember your place.
Poor servant child wearing very nice clothes made of seemingly expensive fabrics.
My father took us to the New World.
Use of the term New World peaked in the mid-17th century, when European explorers were actively navigating the globe and discovering new lands. Barnabas, meanwhile, went to Maine, which had its first European settlers over 150 years earlier, in 1604. So saying the New World instead of saying the colonies is some affected old-fashioned bullshit, even for someone reminiscing about 1760. You're not Magellan. Also, most Tim Burton films can be found under the Netflix category affected old-fashioned bullshit. Unnecessary witchy hand gesturing. Did Angelique cast a spell on Mr. and Mrs. Collins that made them go on a walk so she could drop a stone seahorse on them? Or did she just luck the f*** out? Also, how the hell did she time this? She's definitely in some completely different location. There's no way she could know when they would be in just the right spot. It probably would have been easier for her to just cast a spell on them, or hypnotize them to walk off a cliff like she does with Barnabas' girlfriend later. Also, how does crumbling up a seahorse translate to a seahorse sculpture falling off the structure it's mounted on? She also killed the dog, and Barnabas doesn't go full John Wick on this witch's ass, nor do we even discuss it.
Convinced my parents' death was no accident, I became obsessed with dark magic.
Right, because why would you spend that energy trying to figure out who murdered your parents like a normal person?
Mephistopheles.
Mention of Mephistopheles has no importance to the story, besides providing a setup for a passing McDonald's joke that will happen later. Also, I'm not sure this is what McDonald's had in mind when they paid for this product placement.
For I had found my one true love.
And instead of establishing any relationship between these two, we'll just have them quickly kiss, so the audience will have zero empathy for this character. Discount Heather Graham.
Of all the servants I could have spurned, I got the witch.
You say of all the servants, but she is literally the only servant we've seen so far. And to be honest, if she was the only servant here, I'd also have trouble not spurning her.
Caught in Angelique's spell, my beloved Josette wandered helplessly towards Widow's Hill, where many a despondent soul had leapt to their death.
And no one ever thought of putting up a fence? What is the deal with Tim Burton and blonde-haired, blue-eyed, innocent girls wearing blue dresses? It's a fetish at this point, right? Josette! Not running to save your beloved from certain death. Person under a spell somehow has enough brain power to stop what they're doing for a short amount of time. Still not running to catch her, and now she's dead. After 20 seconds of wave B-roll, Barnabas gets up to discover that Angelique has turned him into a vampire. I guess to pad the runtime?
Angelique turned the townspeople against me.
After turning you into a vampire, she really just had to tell them where you were, so no turning against required. Also, are you going to tell me that this whole story exists because Barnabas couldn't fall in love with Ava f***ing Green? I know who the real antagonist is here. 4 passenger cars here, then 5 here, then back to 4 again? What the f***? Expositional newspaper clipping that she's still holding for some reason is expositional. VW bus filled with hippies in the early 70s cliche.
New York's a trip, huh?
Pardon me, but I didn't get to participate in the 70s too much. Was it really filled with Leif Garrett-looking assholes who ask dumb, empty questions like this constantly? Because that is what every modern depiction of the 70s would lead me to believe.
Hello, I'm Victoria Winters.
Congratulations.
Here to see Miss Stoddard about the governess position?
Oh, yeah. Been expecting you.
They'd been expecting her, yet when he answered the door, he clearly had no idea why she was there. Also, wouldn't they be expecting her under her actual name, since she didn't make up the name Victoria Winters until she was on the train?
Who's that?
That? Oh, that's just the protagonist of the movie whose portrait you picked to discuss over all the other portraits hanging in this mansion because it's important to the plot. I am forcing you to see this portrait in the background so you'll make the connection. This is called subtlety. Also, this brings up another question. Were she and Barnabas married? We don't know because the movie offers no information about this character. But I ask because if they weren't married, then why would they have her portrait in their great room? Now I'm starting to think that Barnabas fell in love with his cousin or something. The Collinses are weird about family. Pretty impressive that Carolyn is listening to a song that won't be released for another 5 years.
You're a liar. Leave her be, Julia.
This family hired Julia to help their son, but all she does is drink and insult other house staff, yet they put up with her like she's a member of the family.
Those are Egyptian cotton.
This is as good a time as any to ask. If this family is so poverty-stricken, then how are they able to maintain this house? I heard the bit earlier about closing off one of the wings, but it's still a giant-ass house that property taxes alone are probably more than they can afford. Selling the house seems like a logical decision that even these idiots would have made years earlier.
Lost sailboats and normal hire. And David's mother's at the bottom with one of them.
This isn't normal teenage bitchery. This is full-on emotional abuse, and Carolyn needs to be in military school. Ghost Josette, or perhaps Gosette, was wearing the sheet like David in the previous scene, because Gosette has a sense of humor and decided this would be hilarious misdirection. Also, she's got crabs. Also, why would Josette have ghost crabs crawling around her? Are those the crabs that died when she crashed into the rock? Are they duty-bound to make her creepier?
You gotta be me.
Grab me some bolt cutters.
Discount Woody Harrelson would rather have bolt cutters instead of calling this in to the higher-ups so that they can investigate the strange chained-up coffin they found in the ground. What the f*** is going on with this guy? He gets hooked with a crowbar by the neck. Then in the next shot, he's getting pulled up into the air by nothing.
I am terribly sorry. Cannot imagine how thirsty I am.
If he really was sorry, then was this necessary? The screenwriter sure thought so, because that moment paved the way for this.
Mephistopheles.
Which is great, because we were all able to not get a laugh at that joke. Also, the f*** is a McDonald's doing way out here in the middle of the f***ing woods? Barnabas is able to walk through town with blood all over him, and no one notices. I might forgive this if he was walking through New York City in the 1970s, but in rural Maine, people would get suspicious.
The Collins family. Do they endure?
Wait a minute, did Barnabas's parents have any other children? Maybe they did, but all we saw in the first scene was the young Barnabas and his two parents. This movie could have at least shown a weird cousin, or a brother or something, because right now it seems like the Collins bloodline should end at Barnabas.
Are you stoned or something?
They tried stoning me, my dear. It did not work.
Haha, hilarious misunderstanding. But didn't the townspeople just grab him and bury him alive? Most of the jokes are derived from simply showing the audience things from the 70s and Barnabas grimacing at it.
What is known of his death?
Nothing. Not that I can think of.
Surely the Collinsport townspeople would have made up a story to justify killing Barnabas and wrote it down somewhere. Nice of the family to position their cereal boxes dead center on the dining table for maximum viewing pleasure.
My God. A woman doctor. What an age this is.
That's racist.
I see that you have grown desperate enough to sell off the prized family silverware.
How could you tell? These are exact replicas.
If they were truly hurting for money, why did they go out of their way to pay someone to make exact replicas of their other silverware?
Had this fork been real silver, my hand would have burst into flames upon its slightest touch.
Then why was he even trying to touch it in the first place? If it's an exact replica, he'd have no reason to suspect his hand would do anything but that upon touching the fork.
Didn't you hear? They found 11 workers dead in the woods off Route 9 this morning.
We're supposed to believe that Angelique somehow didn't get this news until this very moment. Very cool of the cops to let the rich lady mill about the horrific crime scene. Did Angie go home and change clothes? That is definitely not what she was wearing in the last scene. What was the wig budget for this movie? $100?
We're growing into quite the fetching creature. Angelique!
Jesus, does Michelle Pfeiffer live at the top of these stairs? She is never anywhere else when she makes an entrance.
He's asleep, I'm afraid. During the day? How odd.
Don't be ridiculous, Angie. Naps existed in the 70s. Just ask my dad.
How dare you defile my manner with your noxious...
I'm telling you guys, this movie would end here for me. Like, this would happen, and the next shot is some sort of Addams Family-style wedding. And Kix the Spider, a character I would have introduced somewhere in the second act, and you'd have no context for, would be playing that violin he was searching for through all that part that got cut out. It's a work in progress based on this movie and cuts out significant details. But the point is, if Ava Green kisses me, the movie's over. That's all.
I'm the only big fish left in their little pond.
So in 200 years, a powerful witch managed to take over a small fishing village? Be more ambitious. Even though the Collinses are wealthy again after discovering the basement full of goodies, Barnabas still doesn't have enough money to acquire a nice coffin to sleep in. Barnabas is using a mirror, even though he has no reflection. Also, are his clothes a vampire? Why are we just seeing a floating toothbrush and not a floating toothbrush and a floating robe? This song was released in 1972, but became a hit in 1973, and this performance was taped in 1973. So unless they have time-traveling television, there's no way they could be watching this.
Reveal yourself, tiny songstress.
Barnabas pulls the back of this television off, and it still kind of works. Movie will try to have us believe that even though he is sensitive to sunlight, he can get away with not covering his face at all. Christopher Lee is only in this movie for 30 seconds.
Madam, I do not believe that remotely possible.
Not only is Julia able to hypnotize Barnabas at all, she is able to hypnotize him this quickly.
15 and no husband.
Absolute bullshit. The average age women married even in Barnabas's time was in their late teens to early 20s. 15-year-olds getting married pretty much only happen in royal or aristocratic families, so those are the ones people learn about and mistakenly think were common.
She has the most fertile birthing hips I have ever laid eyes upon.
I don't want to research if that is an okay thing for an 18th century person to say. It just feels weird.
I am a picker. I am a grinner. And I am a sinner.
This song doesn't come out until a year from now. Jesus, did anyone research any of these songs before tossing them into the movie? Can't wait for Barnabas to sing that early 70s hit, Karma Chameleon. These hippies still exist. This girl doesn't get to have any pop for some reason.
The dark shadows of one's soul.
Roll credits.
Love. Chicks dig love, man.
Thanks, Gilly from Game of Thrones. When they were making this film, Tim Burton and Seth Grahame-Smith unequivocally agreed that the original Dark Shadows series was great, but lacked blowjobs. This is their attempt to right that wrong.
Actually, I came down looking for David. God knows where he's run up to now.
So, the depressed kid whose mother drowned hangs around by the rocks and violent waves. Good to know that no one seems to give a shit.
You do still love me, don't you?
Angie didn't hear him 200 years ago when he said he didn't love her the first time. Honestly, there's very little sex happening here. It's mostly just destroying her office. Here's a demon tongue, because witches have demon tongues now. Victoria is dreaming about some backstory. I'm not sure what's scarier, Cosette or the baby doll Vicky is playing with. Vicky's parents are concerned about their adolescent daughter having an imaginary friend. Medical professionals take and medicate a little girl for, as far as they know, having an imaginary friend.
Help me. Help you what?
I'm glad this moment was here, because now we know nothing.
And the Collins family have always held the biggest and the most wonderful balls.
Ah yes, America loves a good testicle joke.
Alice Cooper.
It worked out that she was reading a Rolling Stone issue from the end of March, and not the one from the end of August. If she was, Randy Newman might have been the headliner. Having the guy who played the lead character in the original version of the story show up in an unrecognizable cameo cliché.
I used to be such a sweet, sweet thing.
Man, they not only got Alice Cooper to come here, but he sounds exactly like he does on the record. Sweet. Also, Alice Cooper looks old, like as old as he looks now, and this is 1972. Barnabas hypnotizes David so that he'll leave, and he can bust Roger for being a thief. But the next time we see him, he's hanging outside the window, something he could have done without hypnotizing this kid and telling him to leave. Also, gotta say, this whole sequence is confusing. Roger is Elizabeth's brother, but this plays out like Barnabas is busting Roger for cheating on his wife or something. But Roger's wife, you may remember, drowned. Then immediately after, this happens.
Mommy, where's Daddy? He's been gone for so long. Is he ever coming home?
Admittedly, I totally forgot they were brother and sister, but that's because this movie sucks.
He was a kid.
I have no idea. I never saw him before.
Dad moves beyond neglectful and greedy into total asshole territory over an hour into the film. Would this movie have lost anything by cutting this character entirely? There's no point to him. Grabbing a microphone and it feeding back for no reason. I wonder what that guitar player is using to give his electric guitar that pure acoustic guitar sound.
I don't know why, but for some reason I feel like I can tell you anything.
Question: has Victoria seen the obviously her painting hanging in the house yet? Has that freaked her out at all? Or how about how she grew up to look like that ghost she got thrown into the asylum for talking to?
Swept me under the rug because it was easier than having a daughter who was different.
This is in every fucking Tim Burton movie. Every one of them.
You're not using your blood to make me human. You're using my blood to make yourself immortal.
Any wonder why this movie sucks and didn't connect with audiences? There are a lot of disjointed plot points concerning characters we don't give a shit about. It tried to be a full season of soap opera in 2 hours. Julia was using Barnabas's blood to make herself immortal, so when she drains her body and subsequently this bag of blood, he's drinking a lot of his own blood, right? That probably tastes weird. Barnabas wears his sun-protective Michael Jackson outfit in the middle of the night, just in case the sun decides to rise early. Barnabas and the other guy don't cover Julia's face, presumably because her eyes will dramatically open later, and we need to be able to see it.
There's nothing worth stealing, I'm afraid.
Yet another secret door, but who builds a secret room for something this fucking small anyway? I might feel bad about this father leaves his kid scene if the movie devoted even 5 minutes to their characters. Clumsy sadness. Barnabas stands in the sunlight and doesn't move, even though he's on fire. That is a dry-ass bucket, considering he just used it to dump water on Barnabas.
I demand that you release me from my curse.
You're late.
Because as we've learned over the years, whenever there's a meeting, someone's late. Like that fucking matters. Barnabas doesn't use his super speed to escape the situation before he's in chains.
Sleeping flame, I summon thee.
Just like the Harry Potter witches and wizards, Angelique sometimes has to intone a spell, but other times she can just make things happen with a hand gesture. So I'm still confused with the ways of witches is all. Purplish explosions, because this is a Tim Burton film. Nothing can be the color it actually is.
See you in a couple centuries.
Before, Angie had him buried in the ground and he got out in about 200 years. But now, to make sure he really stays, she's just going to set him inside a mausoleum where he can be easily found.
Ah, Christ, Angie ain't got time for chit-chat. The damn town's burning.
It's one fucking building. It would seem that all the townspeople are also vampires with superhuman speed, because they were able to arrive at Collinwood only seconds after the police did.
You've been harboring a murderer.
She's not wrong, and really all she's done in the past 200 years is make the town prosperous and marginalize a family of total assholes. She's no more villainous than the entire Collins family. Movie gives us no explanation for why after all these years Angie starts literally cracking. The only reason I can come up with is there are only 15 minutes left in the movie and we need to wrap this shit up. Since the movie is just randomly giving Angie all the evil powers they can come up with, they might as well throw in the vomiting from The Exorcist.
Angelique!
Even though she was clearly outside just before this, Elizabeth makes yet another entrance at the top of the staircase. Just so you know, things that were never alive in the first place just came to life, but can be killed by bullets.
I'm a werewolf, okay? Let's not make a big deal of it.
Are we entirely sure this isn't just puberty or something? She's still mostly the same as she was before. Also, something that might have been interesting for this movie is thrown away as a joke, pretty much killing the whole reason for making this revelation a surprise.
Your perfect Collins pedigree lacked a bit of substance. So, I sent the werewolf who bit Carolyn in her crib.
Wait a fucking minute. You mean she's been a werewolf since she was a baby? How the f did Elizabeth not know her own daughter was a werewolf all those years? She would have turned several times before she could be old enough to hide it, right? Instead of having David's mom actually do something to defeat Angie, movie just has her scream, because that's something moms do. Also, gotta admit, David's ghost mom is freaky, but this somehow kills the previously indestructible Angie because ghost power? Chandelier physics? 200 years later and still no one's put up a fence.
I'll grow old and die and you'll live forever.
We will find a way, my love.
I know the way. You know the way. Just turn her into a vampire already so I can go to bed.
Josette.
So, did Josette jump into her body? Was she Josette all along? Does she just want to be called Josette? What was the point of Josette's ghost telling Vicky to help her again? The f***? Being a vampire would be tough, but if you have a vampire spouse, you would get the best back scratches.
It is said.
No one gives a shit. Julie's eyes will open in 3, 2... Also, sequel! Oh, wait.
This is the one. This is the one I'll be remembered for.
Where were you born?
Liverpool.
Can you describe it for me?
There's a hole in the world like a great black pit, and the vermin of the world inhabit it, and its morals aren't worth what a pig could spit, and it goes by the name of
Liverpool.
That song's about... it's about aliens. We're the aliens, man. We're the savages.
We're not worthy! We're not worthy!
I want you to tell all your friends about me.
What are you?
I'm Batman.
Only if you could promise me you'll never die.
You know I can't promise that.
If you did that, I would make love to you right now.
I promise I will never die.
Tis a black river. Perhaps it is not too deep.
Ready, and 2.